So next, we are introducing Mr. Roger Mraz and Roger Kropetsky from UCSF School of Dentistry, my dental school. Woo! So let me just introduce the speakers. Mr. Roger Mraz is the program administrator at UCSF School of Dentistry, Office of Graduate and Research Affairs, with 15 years of service. He holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Virginia Commonwealth University. He has been recognized for his exceptional university services with UCSF Chancellor's Award in 2016 and received the Omicron Kappa Upsilon Dental Society Award for Outstanding Service in 2018. And then Mr. Roger Kropetsky is a D3 student at UCSF School of Dentistry. He has a diverse educational background, actively contributes to UCSF community, and aspires to open up his own practice in the San Francisco area. All right, so the floor is yours, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's double Roger today.
I was going to call it, it's going to be a great musical, Roger and Roger.
Roger and Roger. Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Hewlett, for your comments on research. I'm going to be talking for the next 25 minutes or so about research opportunities in dentistry, what that looks like, what it can look like, some of the things that we do. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who's going to talk about our admissions process and the kind of things that we look for in potential applicants. So I'm going to share some slides now. And we'll start our show. So this talk is called Research as Part of Your Professional School Experience or Dental School Experience. I'm going to talk a bit about short-term opportunities. And by short-term, I mean at most of the professional schools that you're going to encounter, short-term will be a sort of like a 3-month experience at a minimum. Though, however, during your dental school experience, you can get involved with a lab for any length of time that your passions and your schedule will allow. And then I'm going to talk a bit about advanced degree programs, what it means to be a clinician scientist or a DDS PhD, and some of the things that we look for at our school when recruiting those people for our programs. First off, I want to talk about Bronwyn Hagen. Dr. Hagen graduated in 2019. I mentioned Bronwyn because she came to our school with 0 research experience. But she knew where she was, she knew what the opportunities could be, and so she stepped outside of her comfort zone and began interviewing with labs to be part of our research fellowship program here. She was a bit fearless in this way, and what she lacked in experience, she sold potential mentors on her willingness to learn quickly, to show proper respect for the project that she was given, and to work well with others. Now, Bronwyn ended up getting a role in the lab of Dr. Jeffrey Bush, who looks at cleft lip and palate and its genetic causality. She went on to win awards at both our local Research and Clinical Excellence Day and nationally with the American Association of Dental and Craniofacial Research. But awards aside, Bronwyn to this day tells us and tells those who she is mentoring that research really helped her be a better dental student. It helped her problem-solving skills, it helped her critical thinking skills, and it helped her be more familiar with trial and error and failure. We'll come back to these in a bit. So I bring up Bronwyn always to encourage those of you who are perhaps hesitant about getting involved in research due to lack of experience to try all the same. You will find, hopefully, the right mentor who will be able to welcome you and mentor you and teach you about their area of science. So why do we do research in healthcare? People come to my office, students come to my office, students that are undergrads come to my office, often seeking opportunities in research. And they have a mixed bag of motivations, right? Some students are quite passionate about the scientific process. They really love sort of posing questions, collecting data, establishing protocols, analyzing that data. Some students see research as a sort of valuable tool to sort of further their interests and their career aspirations in, let's say, orthodontics or in periodontics. These are residency programs that often look to see if students have done scholarly work while they were in dental school. Most people fall somewhere between these two sort of motivations. Now, I don't get too deeply involved in questioning someone's reasons for wanting to get involved, but I do ask two things. First of all, that you find something that you're really interested in. All research involves sacrifice of time and energy. So why not find something that you are interested in? Passion may be too strong of a word, but certainly something that's going to make that sacrifice in time and energy worth it to you. And secondly, respect. Respect for the faculty member that's agreed to work with you. This may be their life's work. So approaching that person and having proper respect for the faculty member is really important. Also, respect for the project and for the team with whom you'll be working with. I think with those two things on your side, a short-term research experience can be one of value. So I encourage you to keep those things in mind. Now, this statement this lofty statement is from our graduate program materials on our website, that the mission of research is to advance the knowledge of our world and facilitate translation of this knowledge into health benefits for patients and society. Why do we do research in healthcare? It's to benefit you. It's to benefit society. It's to benefit us by broadening that knowledge to help the healing process, to develop new ways for preventative practices. The researchers at our school and at other dental schools with strong research programs, like our colleagues here at UCLA, these researchers are here developing ideas and pursuing questions that will benefit society. So these are some of the things that students over the years tell us about the benefits that they found in research, some of which I mentioned earlier: improving their ability to think logically and critically, problem solving. These are very key skills that you can use in dentistry, as I think any dental student here will tell you. Understanding the biological mechanisms that drive your area of interest, understanding developments that may shape your clinical practice, and my personal favorite, familiarity with trial and error or failure. Again, I think any dental student on the panel today or here listening will tell you that so much of your early days of training in dentistry is about sort of trying things in simulation lab, getting them wrong, starting again. And that process is ongoing as you learn to perfect your skills to benefit your patients. So I can't say enough that while uncomfortable as it can be, to really learn how to sort of embrace this process and recognize it as essential to you becoming the kind of practitioner that you wish to be. And research can be a place where you can start to become familiar with this. Now, research areas in dentistry at UCSF, a faculty member recently said, "Roger, this slide is ridiculous. You're just like, there's so many things on this slide." This is not a flex. This is basically a way of showing you that research doesn't have to look like we always think it looks, right? When I first started working in academia, I had a very fixed notion of what research looked like, right? Pipette in one hand, flask in the other, wet lab research, basic science research. Research can look like a lot of different things. So the point of this slide, the real point of this slide, and of course I am proud that we do all these things at UCSF, is to show you that you might consider doing research in dental public health. You might consider research in health policy. You might consider research in lasers and imaging. Plus, you might consider the world of things that are available in the basic sciences. So when you think about research, when you're in dental school, or when you're at your current institution, think outside the box, because there's lots of people there asking really fascinating questions that might be an area of interest for you. So getting started, it all starts with finding a mentor. Anyone who knows me understands that I am a huge proponent of mentorship and the benefits thereof. In research, finding a mentor is absolutely essential. At our school, we have a list of what's called potential mentors, and this is available to students online and through my office. And students are encouraged to explore this list and to email mentors to try to learn more about them and get interviews for any sort of project they may want to do. Your CV can be an aid in this. And guys, I use CV and resume very interchangeably. I know that's heresy to some, but but I basically see this as a document that tells the reader about you, tells them not only what you've done, but what matters to you. This document can be incredibly fluid over the years, depending on what sort of work you are applying for or opportunity. If you are applying for a research position in a lab and you happen to have experience, you want to make sure that that is front and center. If you do not, then what is front and center should be some sort of activity or thing that you have done that tells the reader about you and what matters to you. If you get a meeting with a faculty member at a school like UCLA or UCSF, this is a very lucky thing indeed. These are incredibly busy people. They're generous, yes, but they're also incredibly busy. They're teaching classes, they're writing papers, they're writing grants, they're doing their own mentoring. So you'll probably get about 30 minutes of their time. Come prepared. You don't have to become an expert in what they do, but you do and should be able to answer the question why this area of interest, why this area of research interests you. So you might want to sort of read up on their background, maybe read a paper or two if you can. Come prepared. Lastly, and I can't stress this enough, always follow up. Make time to write an email and thank them for their time. Even if this is a person or a lab that or the work doesn't really appeal to you, you feel there's no connection, they've still taken time out to meet with you, thank them for their time. It's the absolute right thing to do. So at our school, we have a dental student research fellowship program. This program has been with us since 1980. It used to be known as the Summer Dental Student Research Fellowship Program, but I'm sure that many of you have heard that the summer between our D1 year and our D2 year has now been filled with additional training and opportunities for students. And so the program still exists, and it exists in the following two ways. First of all, students that are accepted into our school are invited to find a mentor and come this summer before they start D1 year to work on a research project. Also, students that are in their D2 year, and this includes IDP students, international students, are encouraged to find a mentor and work on a project over a longer span of time, let's say from October to June. And there is time carved out in our curriculum for them to be able to do this. So this is brand new, this second part of the program that I just described to you. We're going to see how it goes this year and learn from it. But one thing remains absolute, and that is we are resolved in making research available to our students at any time that they wish to engage, but certainly through organized programs like this that also provide a stipend and provide training and posters and abstracts and give students an opportunity to present at our annual event, Research and Clinical Excellence Day. Now, this is the save the date from last year. This event brings the first and second year dental students and the new international dental students together. We have guest speakers from outside our institution. There's a poster session. There are small student talks. This is the day when we come together and celebrate scholarly work at our school. And all types of research that I showed you earlier are welcome at this event. So let's talk a bit about advanced degree programs. I'm not exactly sure how I'm doing on time, but I think I'm okay. We have programs, and there are about 15 to 16 programs across the country that train students who are passionate both about clinical dentistry and about research to become a clinician scientist or a DDS PhD. So these programs are highly selective. They're small. We have one of the largest programs in the country, and there's only 20 people in the entire program, and that spans from the first year of their training to the end. So what we're looking for is a passion for research, as evidenced by at least 1 year of full-time lab experience, a strong sense of purpose in obtaining a dual degree, and this is evidenced in their personal statement, and they have several other statements they write about research, strong letters of recommendation from research supervisors and our faculty that they have worked with. Now, the other thing, obviously, is that we always look for good grades, or I always say, never hurt anybody. So a strong DAT and a strong GPA, strong science GPA can only aid your cause in sort of like getting into one of these programs. But it's not the only thing that we look at. Our process is holistic. What is key, though, is that you do have a passion for research as evidenced by the time put in. So here are some things about our particular program. It is an 8-year program, approximately. There's 4 years of PhD training, which includes coursework and lab rotations, what we call a qualifying exam that helps sort of like test the waters on your way to a PhD, experiments, presentations, and papers. At the end of the 4 years, students are encouraged to transition into dental school at that time. Dental school, I'm going to let the dental students who are going to be present at the panel later talk about what dental school is like. So it's a long run. It's a marathon, right, of sorts. And it ends with the completion of your dissertation and the completion of your DDS. So we're looking for people, when I said passion earlier, that's absolutely key in finding students who have what we believe at the time of their entry, the ability to go all the way. And students will complete these programs. And we have a long and strong history of students sort of completing and going on to careers in research while also balancing that with their clinical work, often at other dental schools or our dental school. But the idea is very keen. We are looking for people who see research as an essential part of their careers. Some of our highlights of our program: we have excellent faculty membership. We have at least 60 plus faculty members who are part of our graduate program, and even more faculty in the wider UCSF community. Students are encouraged to explore all of this as they find the right lab where they're going to do their thesis presentation. Our sequencing is PhD training first and then dental school, and this can vary from school to school, so it's something you want to look into. And also we have funding support. We have a long history of being funded by what we call a training grant, which is supplied by the federal government, which helps students in our program get started and get going before they actually apply for their own grants that will help fund both their DDS and their PhDs. So students who are pursuing their PhDs receive full tuition support and a stipend. Students entering dental school in this program do receive additional financial support to help offset the cost of dental school. Now, the funding is generous. It's not a reason to become a DDS PhD, but if this is your passion, there is support for you both administratively and financially. The process each year, I'll just talk about this briefly before we wrap up. If you are interested in this, students are encouraged when they apply for dental school to click a box that says they are interested. This is not a commitment, it's just an interest. At this point, you'll be given more information about how to complete an additional application, complete a short essay on why you want to be a DDS PhD, why you think you want to be a DDS PhD. And then that application in dental school is screened by someone like me, and then forwarded to our faculty to see if they would like to interview this particular student. Every year, about 45 students click that box. We interview approximately 12, and each year we accept 2. So again, highly competitive. If this is your passion, this is something you think you may be interested in, I'm happy to talk to you about that outside of this presentation. But there is a program for you. So I encourage you to explore all the programs available in the US and then see which is the best fit for you. So I hope I'm giving you both some information and some inspiration about getting involved in research. If anyone has any questions at this particular break in the UCSF sort of hour, I'd be happy to address those. In the meantime, here is my email. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or would like to set up time to talk about any of our programs. Are there any questions?
So I think we do have a few questions here. So it's mostly about the UCSF and the admission process. So what types of students UCSF Dental School is looking for? Because as you just mentioned, UCSF has a big emphasis on research. So would you say that like they're mostly looking for students who are like pretty involved in research. I know you mentioned previously there were students who weren't, but just in general, it's probably like a good thing to have in your application before applying.
Well, as Dr. Hewlett said, this is not a requirement to get into any dental school. I think we need to see passionate students. I think UCSF looks for unique students that have a unique story. I think research can be part of that story. I think research, if it's well intended, right? And you can, again, I wouldn't put anything in your application you wouldn't be willing to talk about with a degree of detail and passion. So I think that research can help. It can help your story in terms of yourself as being a well-rounded applicant. But again, Roger is gonna talk more about sort of like the admissions profile. But I think if this is something you're really interested in, then I think it can't hurt your application in any way. I think it could help send a nice message to schools about what you're passionate about.
Okay.
And that is actually a really smooth, nice transition to my presentation. So hello from one Roger to another, a little bit of double trouble today. I hope nobody's too heartbroken that I'm a dental student presenting on behalf of the Office of Admissions, but I've been doing this for about 2 years. I got into dental school, so I really hope that I can give you a little bit of information there.
That's fantastic.
My part of the presentation, I'm just gonna be talking a little bit about, UCSF, the school, our lifestyle, culture, and then of course the thing everyone's interested in, which is the admissions process. Let me just share my screen here real quick and we can get on our way. Okay, beautiful. Can I just get a quick thumbs up? Everyone can see what I'm putting down.
Yep.
Excellent. So hello. Like I said, my name is Roger. I'm currently a third-year dental student here at UCSF. For those of you who didn't read my bio, I kind of have been all over the educational journey. I, graduated high school a little bit early. I went to community college for 3 years or so, transferred to UC Davis, got a degree in neurobiology, physiology, and behavior. And then I did a postbac at Cal State East Bay because I felt that my application really wasn't quite up to par. Like I wasn't quite ready to go into dental school yet. And then here I am, UCSF. So, these stories exist. They're very common. I'm not the only one. There's a million ways to get into dental school, and hopefully this presentation will really reassure you of that. So first and foremost, UCSF, what are we? We're driven, of course, by patient care, education, service, and research, which the other Roger covered quite thoroughly, so that saves me a little bit of time. Thank you. Overall, we just want to advance healthcare for all. Be a good person, do unto others how you want to be treated. Golden rule, right? We have something we describe as the PRIDE values, which is professionalism, respect, integrity, diversity, and excellence. And, believe it or not, this is not just lip service. Even now in clinic, when I'm, doing my exams and working with patients, this is actually a criteria that they grade me on when I'm trying to pass my competency exams. So we take it very seriously. We really want to, create great clinicians who are holistic and empathetic and, understand what it means to be a good clinician in the community doing right by people. So again, patient care is our mission. We do a lot of clinical work. UCSF Dental Center is just one part of UCSF Health and one part of the School of Dentistry in general. We have our own building on the campus here, but UCSF Health is a huge organization. We have medical, nursing schools, PT, pretty much everything under the sun. And part of our curriculum is working with them on complex patient cases as well. So the UCSF Dental Center, we have a pre-doctoral and post-doctoral dental clinics. They're all the same dental center, just on different floors. Pre-doctoral, of course, meaning, people like me who are in dental school trying to become doctors, pre-doctoral, and postgraduate being residencies, which I'll get into in a second. Our didactic courses are located all over the Parnassus campus. Parnassus being one of, I think, 3 or 4 different campuses that UCSF has in San Francisco, just because we're such a large hospital system. The Parnassus campus contains a hospital, multiple admin buildings, they use the dental school, and it's one of the bigger ones in the city. But we have our own building, which is pretty cool. We also have 14 externship partners throughout the Bay Area, Northern California, and Alaska, our only out-of-state site currently. And this is something you do during your 4th year, which I'm about to go into, where you take 6 weeks out of your regular clinic and actually go work in a community clinic based, or like one of these community clinics in the community. Yeah, kind of self-explanatory, you get a lot faster. You kind of like start bridging that gap between seeing just a couple of patients a day in dental school to, seeing a dozen or more in practice once you get out. So really cool experience that I'm really excited for personally. Of course, our mission is education. We are a school, and we have multiple programs, pre-doctoral DDS, which is what I'm in right now, DDS PhD, which is something that Roger mentioned earlier, that 8-year program. And we also offer a DDS MBA, which is a program that you can apply for after or during at the end of your first year of dental school. You can apply for it. It's in partnership with University of San Francisco, which is a different school than us. But essentially, you take night classes on top of your regular DDS and clinical coursework. And by the time you graduate after the full 4 years, you will graduate with both a DDS and an MBA. This is a really good pathway for those who know they want to run their own practice or go into the business side of dentistry, but maybe don't have the background necessary to do so. UCSF also has 10 different specialty programs, pretty much most of them, which is great. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, clinically speaking. It's wonderful because anything you're interested in beyond general dentistry, or even general dentistry, given that we have general practice residencies, anything you're interested in, you can go shadow, you can go talk to them, you can have a close relationship with them, build your resume, make sure it's something you're actually interested in. I know myself and most of my classmates take a lot of advantage of this by constantly shadowing and working in all the specialty clinics that we're interested in, building out our resumes, finding research opportunities, things like that. The reason I called it a double-edged sword is because it does affect our clinical capacities a little bit, because when we have really complex cases, rather than being forced to do it as pre-doctoral students, we generally just refer them up to the specialty, which honestly, that in itself is a double-edged sword, because maybe we're not getting exposure to really, really complex procedures, but at the same time, we are not put out of our depth to a point where it could compromise patient care. And also, we work in conjunction with these specialties all the time. So if it is a complex case that we do want to work on, we can always just work in conjunction with those specialty residents in order to tackle our own patient care. So yeah, overall, really cool to just have access to this variety around us. Going into a little bit about the standard schedule of a dental student at UCSF, because I know work-life balance is something people care a lot about. This is your D1 and D2 schedule. Now, technically our classes are broken down in a few different sections that include a lot of topics within them. So BMS, biomedical sciences, this is going to be your anatomy, your microbiology, your pathology, histology, anything sciencey, kind of the, STEM classes you associate from undergrad, but taken to a higher, dental school medical level. PRDS is preventative and restorative dental sciences. This is your SimLab course. This is going to be your operative, your crown and bridge, your dentures, your endodontics. This is all your actual hands-on practice prior to entering clinic. DentSci is dental sciences. This is kind of like BMS, kind of like clinical, but honestly just a mix of the two. This is where you learn very specifically things regarding dental sciences. This is your periodontal classes. This is all your bacterial and like medical organizational classes. And that's kind of the dentist classes, if you will, beyond the hand skills and science behind it. And then finally, SciMeth, it stands for scientific methods. This is kind of a hallmark of UCSF. We are a research institution, and they make sure we come out not just as good clinicians, but as knowledgeable individuals able to keep up on the most recent developments in science. And so this is a lot of statistics, learning how to read papers. This is our community outreach, where we actually go to local high schools and teach oral health classes to the community. So this is more about like the methodology, the epidemiology of dentistry. And then PCC stands for patient-centered care. This is kind of a blanket class for anything clinical. This is where you learn how to take exams, how to wipe down and set up operatories. This is where you learn how to deal with patient situations, how to fill out paperwork, which, I did not think I'd be doing quite as much of when I got into dental school, but turns out there's a lot of bureaucracy you have to be on top of in order to play by the rules, both for insurance, legal, and personal purposes, staying organized, knowing how to organize patient care in appropriate phases, all that sort of stuff. And then finally, there's ISO, which stands for Independent Study Option. This is everyone's favorite class because it's not a class. It's just, it's a free block. During your first year, every quarter, you get 2 free afternoons per week. The afternoon changes quarter to quarter, but it's always the same week to week. And this is just free time for you. This is Really, really helpful for work-life balance because, you know, you can use it to sleep, you can use it to do laundry, catch up on errands, to study, to go to sim lab to practice, to go shadow in those specialty clinics I was talking about earlier. Everything is on the table. And honestly, without these ISOs, I feel like we would be so much more overwhelmed than dental school already is. So yeah, breaking down, I guess, the D1 and D2 schedule a little bit. D1 is going to be almost entirely didactic courses for most of your year. It does ramp up a lot more into SimLab going into winter and spring quarter, but you know, for the most part, it's book time. You know, learn what you need to learn, pass your tests, make sure you know your anatomy, your microbiology, make sure you understand the histology and the pathology of things. And then, of course, SimLab. This is where you start off drilling, filling. You know, you spend hours in lab learning how to pour stone casts that always break on you until, you know, an upperclassman teaches you some trick to get them out of the alginate well. This D1 is probably, depending on who you ask, the hardest year of dental school. People tend to say it's either the first year or the third year, and that's because they're very different skill sets. The first year is very heavily didactic, lots of work, lots of deadlines, lots of things to keep track of. And then the third year, you're transitioning full-time into clinic. And so that's a whole different challenge, you know, learning how to work in clinic, learning how to work on patients, people skills, organization, hand skills. It very different, and people, you know, gear themselves to different strengths and weaknesses. In my opinion, I thought the first year was the hardest, and I think a lot of people will agree because you're going from either undergrad or like, you know, working full-time or part-time to suddenly being in this drinking out of a fire hydrant situation. So definitely a big adaptive curve. But of course, the ISOs help. You know, I don't think I would have gone through without those ISOs giving me extra time to study and catch up on my lab work. D2, it's a little bit of a flip. You still have one BMS course per week because there's still classes you need to take and things you need to learn. But now it flips very heavily into lots and lots of SimLab, learning your more complex things like your periodontal and endodontic procedures and a lot of dentures and complex crown and bridge cases, and then very heavily into clinic. So clinic, yes, you're still taking the class where you're learning how to do clinic, but part of our curriculum is actually forcing us to go into the clinic and assist upperclassmen third and fourth years. So the reason you see these four, you know, PCC or ISO blocks is because our course is split up in a way where you're kind of expected to go assist 2 to 3 times a week. And then one day a week, which is this Friday afternoon, you have just a regular class where you learn things in clinic. Moving forward, D3, D4, as you can tell, these are almost identical schedules, even though the colors are different. And this is because D3 and D4, the didactics are over for the most part. We still have one class a week that is much more clinically based. This class, PCC 132, it's a lot of what to do in clinic, how to crown a tooth, what situations you would do these things under. But the rest of it is full clinic time. We are in clinic 8 sessions per week, a session being either from 8:30 to 12 or from 1 to 5. And that's because you still get one ISO. Every student gets one ISO every week that is consistent throughout your dental education for the next 2 years. Mine is Wednesday afternoons, which is great because I never have to work 3 full days in clinic ever. But you still get your one ISO and you still have your afternoon or Friday morning class, depending on the year. And every other session is spent in clinic doing full-time patient care. And fourth year is more or less the same, but the only difference is your Friday class switches from morning to afternoon or vice versa. One important thing to note is that even though this D3, D4 schedule looks very monotone, there's still a lot of stuff you have to do in the background. Like, you know, D3, generally, you're going to be studying for boards. You're going to be trying to get your letters of rec. You're going to be trying to do research. You're going to be trying to look into different opportunities around you to look into look into specialties if that's something you want to do. You're going to want to be potentially job hunting, finding mentors. I have a lot of classmates who choose to actually shadow different specialties on weekends, like in private practice, both to establish mentorship and just to kind of understand what there is out there for them. So yeah, lots of opportunity here. And then D4 year, you know, this is like your licensing exam year. There's going to be a lot of time practicing for ADEX, but then most importantly, this is when, you know, now that you actually know what you're doing in clinic and you really are good at it and have done every procedure at least once, hopefully, this is where you're trying to get requirements, right? Like if you're spending all of your time in clinic trying to get those crowns, those crossed cases done, those implants delivered, kind of wrapping everything up and making sure you have everything you need to graduate. Let's see, I tried to move the slide. There we go. So student life, we also have a very robust student life kind of situation and community here. We have, I think last I checked, over 105 registered campus organizations, which you can join as many or as little as you'd like. And that's also possible because of something that I haven't mentioned yet. I think a lot of you might know, but UCSF is a pass, no pass program. And we do have honors as an option, but it doesn't really matter at the end because we're also not ranked. So honors is just something you can get as a little feather in the cap. Like, let's say you want to go into orthodontics, get honors in an ortho class. You want to go into perio, get honors in the perio class, just to kind of stand out a little bit. But overall, it doesn't really matter. And what that does is it creates a really, really great environment at the school where there's no competition, because there literally can't be. You know, my 70 or 80% in a course is just as good as the next person's 95 or 100, because at the end of the day, we graduate with a pass on our record. Our courses are not curved, so it doesn't help us or hurt us to be competitive with classmates, unless it's something that really brings a fire in you. And, you know, if that competitiveness is what kind of keeps you going, of course, feel free. But in general, we're all very kind, we're all very helpful. Even, you know, the worst drama and beef in the school is like very, very insignificant and doesn't affect anyone. We're all friends, we have a great time. Coworkers, really, that's the best way I can put it. It's very, very chill. But like I said, tons of on-campus organizations, which are made possible by having all this free time. You know, we have a lot of time between ISOs and not having to cram to be in the, you know, top 10% of the class, that we can pursue the things that we're actually passionate about, the things that we got into dentistry for, whether it's organized dentistry or specialty interest groups, like I mentioned, all that shadowing and work you can do, cultural groups, lots of community outreach, volunteer-based. We have pretty much everything available. And if we don't have it available, you can make it. As an example, it's not listed here, but this year I was president of an org we have known as Green Teeth, which is all about sustainable dentistry. We looked a lot into, you know, biomedical waste. We looked into how we can be more efficient with sterilization and reusing certain equipment, or being more efficient in how we throw things away in clinic. And we've actually saved the school thousands and thousands of dollars over the last, and by more specifically tens of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years, just by, you know, retweaking the recycling program a little bit. We also host thrift markets, things like that. And that was just something we created because it didn't exist before, and because it's something we were passionate about, and we saw how much waste there was in dentistry and in the school in general, especially when defects are moving. Bit of a tangent there, but just add perfect example of how you can really carve a niche for yourself if that's something you're curious about. This is just some, you know, stock photos from all these campus orgs, you know, lots of people smiling, being happy, being friends with each other. And then, of course, community service. UCSF is huge on community service. We have 50+ outreach events each year through all these different orgs that I mentioned earlier. We do CDA Cares, which, you know, all the dental schools in California participate in. Community Dental Clinic, it's weekly Wednesday nights. We partner with, I think, 4 or 5 different homeless shelters and community centers around the Bay Area that send us patients that are otherwise not insured or can't obtain dental care. And in the D2 curriculum, as I mentioned, we go to high schools and elementary schools and even middle schools and do oral health screenings, education, and fluoride varnishes with kids. There's also the Rec Pass. You know, I know y'all are in SoCal and it's all sunny and beautiful, and I don't begrudge you for it, but the Bay Area and Northern California is beautiful as well. You know, San Francisco is in a situation where you can drive an hour in any direction and find pretty much any climate. We have gorgeous mountains, places to camp, hikes. We have beaches, we have the water. We, you know, drive to like an hour and a half, you're in the desert. Sacramento's right there, farms, whatever you want. There's tons of stuff you can do. And we have a Rec Pass for that, which includes intramural sports, camping trips, and a lot of other fun goodies that is included in our tuition. As I mentioned, living in San Francisco is pretty cool. I was actually born and raised here, so I'm a little bit biased and I won't go on too much about it, but it's definitely a really cool city to spend your mid-20s. Or whatever age you are. I mean, I think it's just a cool place to spend 4 years in general. Big city, small town vibes, it's excellent. Now, getting into the admissions timeline, I know this is something a lot of you are curious about. I'm not sure if this is already discussed in depth in this conference so far, but I'll go over it briefly, at least from UCSF's perspective. So mid-May, that's when the application opens. It being open essentially just means that you can start filling it out. It's about like getting your letters of rec, transcripts, submitting your DAT, filling out your extracurriculars, things like that. Early June is when you can actually submit it. So the sooner you submit, the more likely you are to be reviewed in the first batch of applicants. And since a lot of these things are rolling admissions and rolling interviews, it definitely benefits you to submit them later. UCSF has one of the earliest submission deadlines of any school. It is October 31st. And what that means is that we need all of your supplies and information submitted by October 31st. And the thing that limits most people there is actually the DAT, because the DAT can take up to 6 weeks to process and for scores to be posted. So if you're trying to apply to UCSF and you're trying to get in before this October 31st deadline, we require that you take the DAT by September 15th. And this is just because if you take it after that, there's no guarantee you will actually get the scores in time for a deadline. So that's very, very important. You want to be on top of that. And then, of course, first offers made December 15th. I know this date changes every single year, and I'm not sure if this is if this slide is relevant for this year's cycle specifically, but this is pretty uniform across all schools. No schools are allowed to give you a decision until the same date in December. This December 15th date, I might not be super on top of the current dates, but usually it's always the first week, like the first Monday of December. They may have shifted it in recent years. Looking at just a profile of a successful applicant, I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about this already by now, but cumulative science and GPAs roughly equal to or above a 3.5, DATs equal to or above a 22. Unfortunately or fortunately, DAT scores have been skyrocketing in the country across the last few years. I was just looking at some statistics on this, and the difference between 10 years ago and now, the average used to be about a 19, and now the average is about a 21 of people taking it. But yeah, these are just things to keep aware of. But one really, really big caveat I want to emphasize with these numbers is that averages are averages. If you have 100 people in a room and 50 of them have a 4.0, but 50 of them have a 3.0, your average is still a 3.5. Right? So don't be discouraged if your GPA or DAT are a bit above or below this, or even a lot above and below this. As long as you have a good, strong, holistic application where you're showing you're making up for your weaknesses in other ways, you would be perfectly fine. I myself was not a very high GPA applicant. In fact, I was a little subpar even after my postbac. I was sitting at personally, I don't care about sharing. I was sitting about like a 3.3 and about a 3.2 science. But I got a really good DAT score, which made up for that. And on top of that, I had a ton of extracurriculars. I really showed my dedication to the craft, and that made me a holistic applicant. So I got in. And this applies to everyone. On a later slide, you'll see some ranges of people who've gotten in, and you'll just shock and awe about how much averages really are just averages. And of course, we want to understand that the profession. You're sacrificing a lot of time and money and energy in order to become a dentist. It would suck if the second you got here, you spent all the money, 2 years in, you're in clinic, and you realize you hate it. Showcase this with shadowing, showcase this through your extracurriculars, show that you've done the work to know what it means to be a dentist. And then all these other things are, dental experience, integrity and maturity, well-developed idea of professional goals. They all kind of roll into this idea of knowing what it means to be a dentist and knowing that this is something you want to do. We get so many personal statements of people saying, I want to be a dentist because I want to help people. Well, you can help people in other ways. You can be a lawyer, a social worker, construction worker. You can, open a restaurant and feed people. There's a million ways to help people. So why dentistry specifically? And that's not just for UCSF. That's just a good tip across any application. So some admissions demographics for the class of 2026, our class size is 60, which is smaller than it used to be. We decreased it in order to have a much better faculty to student ratio. And I know that the smaller classes are really appreciating that with more hands-on time. It's 42 women to 18 men. Residency, California residency, 80%. Don't be daunted by that. Don't be scared by that. UCSF actually does not have any preference for in-state or out-of-state. This is just a statistical confounder because UCSF, it's an in-state school for many people. So if people from California get in, they will likely choose it. Same goes for UCLA. It just really depends on, where you live, what you want out of school. But then on top of that, because it's California has so many more people than a lot of, just population wise, we're so large. We get a lot of applicants from California, which also increases how many people from California statistically we would accept. And on top of that, UCSF is just like any dental school, but UCSF is a hard school to get into. And odds are, if you got into UCSF, you might have also gone into other schools. And for out-of-state students who may have gone into UCSF, but then also they're like, the school nearby, they will likely select their home school or the one closer to family or the one that's cheaper to them. And so because of that, we're likely to pick up California residents as well. But overall, no preference, is just a matter of holistic applications. For cumulative GPA, like I said, averages, we're looking at a 2.9 to a 4.0, and science GPA from a 2.48 to a 4.0. Now, this is undergraduate, so maybe these people did master's programs or something else in the interim. But as you can see, averages are averages. You never know what really goes into it. DAT academic average, again, 18 to 29, total science 17 to 30, and our ethnicity breakdown is down below. Now, cost of attendance, don't be scared by this. I know it's a huge slide, just kind of summary of what you'd be getting yourself into. There's actually a lot of things that I'll go into on the next slide that'll offset all of this. As you can see, the tuition is actually fairly cheap when it comes to dental schools. We're about 55 to 60,000 a year, depending on what year you're in. But where it really adds up is cost of living. San Francisco, just like LA, not a cheap area. And so overall, this will kind of come out to the expected numbers at the end. But the non-resident tuition, if you're not a California resident, you can actually get resident tuition after 1 year of living in California. So when you move, if you've lived here for 1 year, you're eligible to become a resident of California, and the school honors that in your tuition moving forward. So, even if the final number is this 418, if you take out 3 years of this 12.2 thousand, it actually comes out to under 400,000, probably, ballpark 370 or so. So that's something to keep in mind, assuming that's something you're interested in. And like I said, there's also a lot of offsets to tuition. So there's a lot of financial resources. There's merit and need-based scholarships, which UCSF gives plenty out of. Student food market, free food every Thursday, basically just a food bank, get whatever you want, be creative in the kitchen. I love it personally. It saves me on groceries, and also I love cooking. So this kind of gives me an opportunity to try out new things that I wouldn't maybe otherwise pick up on the shelves. CalFresh program, UCSF, as students, we make no money, and UCSF makes every effort to get us onto food stamps, basically. So, every month I get $200 that I can use for groceries, which is immensely helpful, something I can cut out of my budget. And again, really allows me to focus on school and not worry about, where's my next meal coming from? How am I going to make rent, etc. There's also food for students, which is just like if there's leftover food after lunch and learns or events, you can get a text and they'll basically say, hey, come here, we'll take a look, grab whatever you want. UCSF shuttles, as a UCSF student, you can take them all across the city. Our campuses are scattered pretty much everywhere. And so if you need to get to any part of the city, you can just go to a UCSF campus, take the shuttle to that area, and then kind of make your way from there. Late night Lyft, if you're on campus after a certain time, you actually get a discount on the Lyft ride back home. I think it's something like $5 or $10 off of the ride, and it works in like a 5-mile radius, which maybe doesn't sound that big, but San Francisco is only 7 by 7 miles, and UCSF is in the middle of it. So a 5-mile radius covers the entirety of the city and a little bit past that too. And then, of course, military health profession scholarship and other things like the I'm blanking on the name right now, but the FQHC public health scholarships are, of course, available to our students as well. And then finally, I just wanted to plug our Postbac program. We do have a Postbac program that has an excellent perk of if you get a 3.5 or higher in the Postbac, you're guaranteed an interview at UCSF when you apply for our dental school. So the application opens February 1st. And Zoom interviews, offers are made in April. So this is something you're thinking about, maybe apply next year, if you feel like your GPA is great coming out of undergrad. It's a year-long program. We partner with the UC Berkeley extension. It's pretty intensive. You're not allowed to work during it because they really want you to put your all into getting the best grades and best preparation for dental school possible. It's mostly science classes, lots of personal statement interview preparation. I actually work with the Postbac students closely on things like supplemental questions and interview prep and personal statement review. As I mentioned, 3.5 or above automatic interview. It's only for academic boosters, no career changers, unfortunately. If you want a career changing program, CSU East Bay and SF State both offer them. I myself did the CSU East Bay postbac, but as a academic booster, not a career changer. But plenty of my friends and even some of my classmates currently did the career changer program and are, they're my classmates now. They're great. And if you want any more information, the link is right there. And I would not be doing my job that they pay me for if I did not plug us on social media. So if you want updates on what we're up to, on future events, outreach, RCO stuff, follow us on Instagram, sign up for our emails. If you have any questions whatsoever, Facebook right there, Instagram right there, email right there, admissions.ucsfdental@ucsf.edu. I myself and a few of my other student workers are the ones monitoring those emails, and we reply pretty promptly. And we are always happy to chat and, either help you get into UCSF or another dental school. At the end of the day, we're all going to be dentists. We all just want more clinicians in the community. So any work we can do to improve on that is work we're happy to do. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to quickly check the chat to see if there's any questions that I missed. If anyone would like to speak up and, chime in, ask questions, happy to chat until my time is up.
Thank you so much, Roger. Actually, when I was listening to your presentation, everything was super accurate. And I basically use like every single of those services that UCSF provides. I've used the shuttle, I've used the lift services, I used the food services. So it was amazing. And I just had a flashback. We do have a couple of questions. I could go ahead and start asking. So basically, one of my questions is that being in dental school for the first 2 years in SimLab, how does UCSF helps students to transition from being in SimLab to clinic and actually see patients?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I touched on it a little bit, but let me try to maybe make it a little bit clearer. During your second year, and I mean in your first year as well, but mostly during your second year, you're required to assist in our clinic. So like right now, I'm a third year, I'm about to be a fourth year. A lot of the time I work alone, which is fine. You need to be able to work alone, but it always helps to have an assistant, have someone hold the suction, get supplies, things like that. And when you're a second year student, we require that you assist not only to stay immersed in dentistry, but also because it familiarizes you with the clinic. It helps you know where to get the supplies you need, who to talk to, how to get faculty consents, how to navigate like the software, understand clinic workflow, know what is and isn't okay, what professors are. And on top of that, you get to learn alongside the D3s and 4s that are doing these procedures. It might not feel as applicable to you because you're just shadowing and not doing the work yourself, but that doesn't mean there is an opportunity to learn just by being in that environment. And on that note, just because we're third and fourth years doesn't mean we stop assisting. If I don't have a patient and I'm just hanging out in clinic with nothing to do, I will absolutely go help one of my classmates or an upperclassman with a procedure because, I think that the further you get in dental school, the more it really sinks in that you're doing this for a career and it's going to be your license and work on the line. And the more you really feel the pressure to actually learn instead of going through the motions of just what school tells you to do. First and second year, it's definitely didactic. It feels a lot like undergrad. It doesn't feel as pressing. You're just really just trying to get through it because there's so much stuff. But once you get to, your third year, and kind of like the training wheels are off a little bit, although it's still very heavily on there, you definitely start kind of being a self-starter on that front. But yeah, the shadowing helps a lot and it's mandatory for us as well.
Got it. And then could you please talk to the participant a little bit about the types of board exams we have to take in dental school? Because there's quite a few of them, but I was wondering if you can just talk a little bit about which ones are written, which ones are practical.
Sure. So there's a lot of exams you have to take in dental school, but I assume this question is asking specifically about like licensing and board exams rather than like our own competency exams internally. So there's two kinds of exams primarily. There is boards exams, INDBE, Integrated National Dental Boards, and there is ADEX REB. which is the now integrated licensing exam. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between boards and licensure? Well, boards is something you have to pass to graduate dental school. It's kind of like all the didactic knowledge where you take, it's kind of like the DAT, where you take a huge 2-day test. It's like 12 and a half hours, I think, over 2 days. And it's just random didactic questions, clinical questions, seeing whether or not you are, I mean, basically smart enough, whether or not you have the knowledge, critical thinking skills in order to be a well-practicing clinician. I actually just passed my boards about a week ago, so fresh for me. Thank you.
Congratulations.
But then there's licensing, which is ADEX Reb, which is kind of the flip side of dentistry. You know, you might notice a pattern when we talk about these things of always didactic versus practical, didactic versus practical. ADEX Reb is practical. It's where you sit in a room, it's offered once a year, and you do a filling, or you do a crown, or a bridge, or an endo case, you know, a root canal. And there are trained evaluators, which then determine whether or not you pass. And so licensure is something that you need in order to practice. You don't necessarily need it in order to graduate dental school, but you need it in order to be able to practice. And so people take licensure exams at the end of their 4th year. Once you pass, at least now, because ADEX and REB fused into one test, you're free to work in almost any state in the country. So again, boards versus licensure, or boards versus ADEX, as you'll often hear it called, is just didactic versus clinical stamp of approval from our governing body.
Great, thank you so much. I do have another question. So I know UCSF is a pass-fail program, but let's say if applicants want to apply for residency, are their grades will be shown to the residency program they're applying at all, or no?
So trick question, because the answer is yes. However, your grades are P or NP, or P or H in our case, because no one graduates with an NP on their transcript. So programs do get your transcript, which has all P's and maybe a few honors if you put that work in. I was talking earlier about, though, how it's a double-edged sword, because UCSF, again, is not ranked. And there's no secret ranking, nothing like that. So program directors for residencies don't have a built-in way to see, like, oh, hey, you were top quartile in your class. So you have to prove it in other ways, whether it's your letters of rec, your extracurriculars, your interview, your personal statement, all of these things matter. But at the same time, you also don't have to be fighting for that top 25% spot. So you actually have the time to explore and build yourself holistically as an applicant, as opposed to a lot of other schools where students are so busy trying to get the grade that really they have to be like, their grades have to be everything because they don't have the time or energy to have those other things to make you stand out.
Right. And then one last question. I'm asking this because for me, when I was applying to dental school, UCSF was my first choice. So I really wrote my application in such a way that I could be a good applicant to UCSF. So I guess my question is, what is your recommendation for someone like me who was applying to dental school, who UCSF is their dream program and they really want to get in, but there's no guaranteed. So what do you suggest for those applicants to do to be a better applicant?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. There's no secret sauce to get into UCSF, but I think that if there was one, it would be one that I would apply to all of your dental apps regardless, which is that be yourself, be holistic, explain who you are. Because UCSF values that individuality and values your journey and kind of everything you have done up to that point as who you are as an applicant. When schools build classes, they want ones that are not uniform. They don't want a monolith. They want people from all walks of life. And UCSF in particular is very holistic in how it does that. And they appreciate people with a story, and they appreciate people who are, they know what they're about. And, that's the best advice I can give to get into UCSF personally. But the thing is, that's also great advice for any other dental app, because they read so many that sound exactly the same. And if you can stand out just by being authentic, being yourself, and really owning who you are, not only will you stand out in apps, but also you're far more likely to end up at a school that is actually right for you, that wants you for you. Because who wants to fake it until you make it and then suddenly be stuck for 4 years in a situation where you're not happy, the school's not happy, and you're just waiting to get out of there? So that's the best advice I can give on that front.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you both coming and spending your Saturday morning with us. And thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I'm sure it answered like so many questions about research, about the research opportunity at UCSF, and about the dental school program that UCSF offers. So thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for having us. You know,
Of
I love doing these
course.
events. I love paying it forward. I used to go to these all the time as a free dent. So
Yeah, we'll let you know about the next events. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great Saturday.
Have a great day.